When we talk about polish, what we're really saying is the little details that tend to make a website. So here I have a website and I made this for something, but we can see that it looks really flat. There are a few ways to fix this, and I'm going to show you how that can make a difference. So first, I'm actually going to take a screenshot of this so that we can compare the before and after, just so that you can see the details. I'm not saying that you have to design a site like mine. I'm just saying that sometimes polish can really take a site from mediocre to better than mediocre, which is, of course, always good. So one of the first things we can look at is, okay, we have these tabs up here. They're just kind of sitting there. They're white. They're very plain. As it just so happens, we have the layer effects that we can use on things. So layer style, stroke, we can add, which of course I'd already been messing around with a bit. So I'm going to turn the effects back on. And you can see by turning the effect on and off, it starts to look just a little bit more polished, not quite so plain. So the neat thing is you can actually copy and paste layer style. So I can copy this layer style and paste it to the next. So I added that layer style, which includes a stroke, and also, if I may take a moment to show you, a gradient. I'm going to turn the gradient off and on, off and on. Adding the gradient kind of helps it stand out just a little bit. I've got the slightly more dark gradient at the top, the lighter one at the bottom. I also have an inner shadow, which I'm not sure that you can necessarily see on your screen because of the way this records, but it adds a very slight line, the way I have it set up, around the interior. So let's turn all the effects off and back on. Now we can see that's kind of added a little bit of polish there. So the next thing I'm going to do is kind of take a look at this logo up here, which I don't have quite lined up. I'll get to that in a moment. It's pretty plain as it is right now, but what I did when I was making this site is I added an outline and a shadow to it, and that kind of makes it pop out a little bit. And if I had more time, then I would play around with it a bit more. I'm not sure if I'm really feeling that outline, but that's kind of part of web design, is figuring out what does and does not work. Here's off, here's on. You can see that having the outer glow, which we referenced in another video, outer glow, and then setting the blend mode to multiply and the color to black, it gives a shadow all the way around it, as opposed to drop shadow, which is just on a side. Kind of helps pop it out a bit from the light background. Here's off, here's on. It's a very subtle difference, but that's part of producing something which has a bit more polish to it. So, the next thing we want to take a look at is this picture. It's just kind of hanging out there and it's kind of flat. Well, we can add a drop shadow, which I had done. We can also add a stroke, which is a line around it. In this case, I'd probably take that down to maybe 2, and I might even make it a slightly different color, maybe blue, like so, or darker gray. Because remember, when you open up some of these colors, like select the stroke color, we can move our mouse around and color pick from these things. Black is a bit too harsh because there's really no black on this entire website, so I'd want to stick with a blue or white or gray. I'm going to go with the white for the moment. I'm not sure how I feel about it, but I might go back and fix it later. So one of the most important things that you need to add polish to are buttons because, well, they assist your users in figuring out where to go. In this case, they're looking very flat at the moment. We can see that there's no outline. You can't really tell the light gray from the white very well. I added a whole bunch of effects. Here's off, and here's on. Now what this does is I added a gradient, which you can kind of see at the top here. It's slightly darker. At the bottom, it's a little bit lighter. I also added the outline to it. And an outer glow, which, again, on your screen watching this compressed video, you might not be able to see too well, but it adds a very slight shadow. I'll bring it up just a little bit so that you can see it. You don't want it too dark because then it looks strange. You want to bring the shadow down so it's just kind of barely there and popping out the item. I added those layer styles. One of the other things I did with this website was add layer styles to the text. So watch this text right here. There's no styles on it now. And now I've added one. See how it kind of emphasizes the lettering just a little bit more. I wanted to keep that cyan color, but it also, I added an inner shadow to it and an outer glow. The outer glow, actually, I have set to screen and then white to kind of make it glow just slightly. I'm not sure how useful that is in the grand scheme of things for this. You can barely see it. The inner shadow, though, really does make a difference. So, inner shadow off, inner shadow on. You can see how it does make it pop. My last order of business then, when I was putting this together, was fixing up these little arrows. We could leave them just the light gray, but I wasn't really feeling that, to be honest. I added in a little bit more detail to it to kind of make them look a little bit more 3D. And the whole effect, at least in my mind, if this is working correctly to you, makes it look like the entire button is kind of standing out a little, and these arrows are standing in. Here's off, here's on. You can see it, that little bit of detail does actually add quite a bit to it. So now, here it is, pretty much complete. I would probably touch up a couple more things, but let us compare it to how it was before polish. Here's off, here's on. I think that there's a pretty significant difference, and I realize that sometimes you may think, oh, I don't have time for that. Well, this is also the difference between making something that is kind of flat and making it at least a little bit more visually appealing. One thing I want to reference that I don't think we've touched on yet is if you press Command R for ruler, you get a ruler all the way around, well, on the left and top of your image. And you can click and hold down in the ruler area, and this will bring down a little line, which of course is kind of hard to see there. Let me try it this way. Which now I'm going to go line up this MI Creative Connect with the side of the page. So, of course, after turning off the other layer, I can line up that image a little bit better. And that's it.